Bob Dylan. Is he really a literary genius? What do you think? Can a popular singer from the 60s be classed as a gifted poet? Did he deserve the Nobel Prize in Literature awarded to him? An honour not even bestowed on poets such as Robert Frost. This debate has split the literary sphere, polarising the written world as the very definition of literature is shaken by the humble work of a singing sensation. As we dive into Bob Dylan's groundbreaking masterpiece, Like a Rolling Stone, your mind will be blown, and you'll be forced to rethink literature and its defining moments. Buckle up for a bumpy ride deep into the psyche of one of history's greatest musicians and poets ever to live.
Hello friends and welcome back to my channel. Today we have a special guest with us, defying the laws of time and space, Mr. Bob Dylan.
Yeah. Hi, hello?
Guess what? It's your lucky day, because we're about to spend the next 15 minutes analysing, arguably, what is your greatest hit.
Which one was that again?
Like a Rolling Stone.
Rolling Stone. Yeah. Sounds familiar. I've forgotten those other ones. I got a printout of the lyrics. Probably gonna be looking at this one a few times.
To help us today, we also have another special guest. This one all the way from Vienna, Austria. Dr. Sigmund Freud himself. Here to aid us in our psychoanalytic reading.
That is correct. We will be digging into the song to work out what your inner self thinks, Mr. Dylan. What fun!
Well then, that wasn't awkward at all. Let's move right on, shall we? Just for some context. Like a Rolling Stone was first recorded in 1965 as part of the hit album Highway 61 Revisited, and quickly became a sensation, with both a hit band and popular magazine named after it. Today it is one of Dylan's most well-known songs and, arguably, part of the foundation of rock and roll. Mr. Dylan, do you have any preliminary comments regarding the overall meaning of this song?
I guess it's a warning in a way. A warning about the loss of innocence, downfalls in life. Just don't get too comfortable where you are and ignore other people.
Would you say it's about someone in particular?
It could be. I guess. I think in the song I addressed it to a female. But you could read it still, I think a lot of people do. As a general warning to society. However, I kept that open. A lot of people find their own meaning in my songs.
Maybe I have an opinion here. What it could be, and what I think it is to some degree, is a reflection of you. You are attacking and warning yourself for the mistakes you have made, even if you don't realize it.
I think that's really great, Freud. This could turn out to be an amazing interview and analysis. Let's jump straight into it. The first verse begins with the words, "Once upon a time," immediately establishing the ballad-like form of this song. The continual use of rhyming and assonance in this song, especially in these first few lines, fine, dime, prime, doll, fall, etc., sets up a strong form and structure that creates a sense of urgency. This is coupled with the direct address to you. Not a vague subject, but this is direct speech. An accusatory tone is established also with the rhetorical question, didn't you? That is maintained throughout this song. In this line, it is coupled with a powerful image created by the use both of alliteration and the idiom. You dress so fine, through the bums a dime in your prime. The imagery invoked is clearly one of an uppity, well-off person with a condescending attitude to those lower than her, carelessly tossing some unwanted change at the bums. In the second half of this verse, the image is flipped, which is a recurring motif throughout the song. This is done effectively by at first using past tense, you used to, and then using present, now. This creates a comparative tone where we are forced to compare the lifestyle and attitudes of before with what is to come. This subversion of the image culminates in the last line, scrounging your next meal, putting her in the place of the bums before and relying on the pious charity of others. The chorus then concludes this image with a question, how does it feel, that is repeated to emphasize the hopelessness, urgency, and desperation of the situation, as well as strengthen the condescending accusatory tone of the persona. This is coupled with a number of similes, to be without a home, like a complete unknown, like a rolling stone. Dylan, I thought you might like to help us here with the possible meaning of this eponymous idiom.
Right. Okay, so, yeah, I've always liked is the image of a stone, maybe in a river or something. It's continually rolled over and over, and this rolling stone is being eroded by the influences around us. And it's what makes it smaller and smaller. Similarly, in my song, the person has negative influences, it's just making them more and more insignificant in society. Another one I've heard is the image of a stone rolling down a hill causes more and more to roll and an avalanche to form. The actions have consequences, people. In this case, led to a downfall.
Dr. Freud, what are your thoughts on this verse and chorus?
Well, this is all very interesting. Clearly, Mr. Dylan has some internal conflict. I think later in the song it comes out what is the cause of this, but for now this powerful imagery shows a deep remorse for certain actions in his life. I can see in this that the persona is Dylan's superego, addressing the mistakes of his ego as a result of the drives of his id. That has caused him to become like a rolling stone. The urgent accusatory tone is indicative of his frustration and unsatisfaction with himself, and he immediately uses the cover of an idiomatic simile to expand the cause of this downfall was from some form of external influence. That is explained further later.
Wow, Freud, that's deep. Any comments, Mr. Dylan? Well, I'm sure we're all sitting on the edge of our seats in anticipation of what that influence is, so let's move on. The second verse follows the same comparative pattern with images of a fine previous life contrasted with the dull reality of tough existence. The first few lines describe her education, interestingly naming her Miss Lonely. This use of a pronoun suddenly builds the characterization of the person addressed and immediately associates her with loneliness. What's interesting is that this is one thing that doesn't change for her. In both lives, she is lonely and unhappy. The revised chorus for this verse displays that, on your own, a complete unknown.
If I may, what is intriguing is that this is indicative of where Dylan's mind is at. His thoughts clearly revolve around this strong sense of loneliness, wherever he may be in life, and that is what drives his inner conflict with himself throughout this song.
What these first few lines also do is show the inadequacy of the previous life. Although she has been to the finest schools, she was never taught any valuable life lessons and was only juiced in it. Mr. Dylan, would you like to explain that phrase there?
Yeah, okay. I think it also creates imagery here through the idiom used. An image of someone who is knowingly getting spoiled through a pointless education. But also deeper, it has a sense of brainwashing and mind-numbing, which, through the image of being juiced or drugged, I guess.
Yeah, drugs is important in this one. That is a subtle reference, but it comes out later in the second half of this verse. The mystery tramp is an extended metaphor for drug usage. I think in this case more particular of a drug dealer. Here's the image shown as that one that was originally avoided but became inevitable. Here Dylan reveals what is the influence that has caused this internal struggle. He shows that he knows that it is bad by using the metaphor of the vacuum of his eyes, which provides a shocking image of the consuming nature of drugs. However, he is the one who instigates the deal in the last line. Despite knowing this does not provide true escape from trouble, he's not selling any alibis.
Wow, I don't even need to be here. Between you two, I think we've got this covered. Just one more thing though. As I mentioned earlier, this is actually a revised chorus. This replaces the line, to be without a home, with to be on your own with no direction home. This change is maintained in any future choruses. What's interesting is that the clear binary that was established before between the two lives has been blurred. Before it was wealthy, educated, and established against homeless, hungry, and begging. Now it seems that both have a home. The only difference is now she can't get to it. What this does is increases the inner conflict and frustration that Freud was referring to before. Dylan knows he has a home, a safe place, but he has no way of getting there and is instead trapped in this reliance on drugs. On to the next verse. The metaphors and imagery just keep coming. First we have the jugglers and clowns, a metaphor in this case that creates the image of someone ignoring the monotony and pain that these people experience by devoting their lives to providing frivolous entertainment. The persona gives us a glimpse at the frowns of these typically ever-joyful comedians, and instead of blaming them for their life choices, blames the person he addresses for allowing them to go down this path. I think Freud will have something to say about that.
Yeah, I was just thinking that this is quite revealing. I think the jugglers and clowns could be a metaphor also for the drugs he has succumbed to. First, only recognizing them as a source of enjoyment and catharsis, and not realizing the danger in trying to get kicks from this. Because of this, he is angry at himself, and that he comes out in the strong language, especially in blaming himself and not the drugs.
Interesting. Right after that, there comes another extended metaphor imagery thing that, on the face of it, is rather confusing. I mean, chrome horse, diplomat, a Siamese cat. Of all things. Mr. Dylan, do you have any idea what's going on here?
Yeah, that gets people all the time. You see, when I write, I have all sorts of meanings in my own head. of leave it open for people to think for themselves. I think it's important to note the ridiculousness of the image. The chrome horse, possibly referring to a real horse or even a motor car. In any case, it's an example, a symbol, I guess, of luxury. Combine this with the diplomatic companion, which has a rare cat on his shoulder. Clearly the image is both very luxurious and ridiculous. But in the end it leaves her looking the fool, because she has it all stripped away from her by this quirky friend.
I think I may have an explanation of that image in terms of Dylan's subconscious and the stuff we have already established. It's drugs. It's drugs again.
What's with the drugs? Can it be something normal?
It's your subconscious, Dylan. I'm just reading into your song. The ridiculous image conjured by this metaphor is reflective of the hallucinations related to certain drug usage. The picture of luxury reflects that initial high, with the diplomat specifically relating to a looser town, possibly indicating drug usage as a form of creativity or for social benefits. However, the next few lines clearly indicate Dylan's remorse for this, that he doesn't realize the damage until it was too late. Following this with another chorus, he increases his berating of himself for his actions and continues to display his inner feelings of helplessness, frustration, and anger.
Okay, if you say so. Just one more verse left and we're running out of time, so let's keep going, folks. Here we have another glimpse of the fancy previous life of our wonderful dropkick that she used to lead, starting with a nice allusion to the fairy tale image of a princess high in her tower with the world at her beck and call. This is aided by the alliteration on pretty people and the rhyming of drinking thinking to emphasize the extravagant hedonistic lifestyle. However, this is quickly subverted once again, this time using enjambment between the third and fourth lines to cause a sudden, unexpected flip, which creates even greater emotive impact, with the image of this once well-off character having to basically pawn in her previous fairy tale life in order to survive. And then we have the final image of this song. One more metaphor that exacerbates the tension and sense of helplessness to an all-time high. Dylan, I'll give you the honor of tackling this one.
Thanks, I guess. It's the Napoleon in rags, right? Yeah. That a great illusion because it creates such a powerful image of the one who had it all. Fame, glory, wealth, but now has lost it all. In a few words, I managed to fit the essence of the song, condensed it all. Every one of those metaphors and images into 3 words. Napoleon in rags. Then I get the subject to interact with this. Put her first on one side looking down on him. She needs him to survive. Then she's finding amusement in the peculiarity of his situation. But then I flip that, and now she relies on him. She needs him to survive. Sorry, I just hate thinking. Freud, your turn.
Finally, we come to the most interesting part of the song. The Napoleon in rags is yet another metaphor for drugs, and the most powerful one yet. Originally, there was some amusement at those Vi yet succumb to drugs. Interestingly, there's another reference to language here, indicating once again Dylan's view of these drugs as a way of stimulating creativity, possibly in his songwriting. This is understandable, as it was the popular opinion at the time in the artistic sphere. However, Dylan reveals also what drugs has done. He relies on them. The strong language used emphasizes the trapped feelings he experiences as he can't refuse the drives of his id.
That's extremely insightful. Any comments from either of you on the last line of this verse? You're invisible now. You've got no secrets to conceal. That was the line. That wasn't addressable to you.
I think in that last line we also have a glimpse of the potential struggles that are also in her previous life. Saying now she has no secrets to conceal indicates that previously she did. Showing it wasn't all rosy, but there were suppressed issues and troubles, which I guess have manifested themselves more openly now, so she no longer has that weight of hiding them. She's invisible now because she can hide behind her own messed up life.
I must agree with Dylan on this one. There is clearly internal turmoil in both lives, and I think that is mostly manifested through the medium of this song. I think the most clear indication of Dylan's desire is to hide is found not only in the presence of images or metaphors, but in his use of a female pronoun. As a subtle misdirection away from any analysis of his own experiences. This solidifies everything we have spoken of. The inner conflict he displays, his anger, frustration, helplessness, and remorse for the effect of drugs on his life, as well as more unconsciously revealing his initial view on drugs as a creative means, and then hiding all this behind a complex web of metaphors, allusions, and imageries, and a female pronoun. Well done, Bob Dylan. This is literature of a genius level, and a complex treasure trove of the subconscious.
I think Freud wraps that up nicely, folks, and with his own answer to our initial question as well. I too have to agree with him. At the start of this interview, I wasn't sure, but after going through this with you wonderful people, I must agree. Bob Dylan, you have my vote. You are a literary genius. One more thing before we close. What do you think yourself, Dylan? Would you call yourself a literary genius?
You see, I don't think myself as a poet. I write songs. But I understand why one might think what I write is literature. Because I do write the words before I write the music. But, yeah. Personally, I don't care. Think what you want. Not gonna change what I write or how I write. Give me a prize, don't give me a prize. I don't care. You make the choice yourself. If you want a tip, take LSD while you're making the choice. It always helps me to have a clear head.
Okay, maybe Freud was right after all. Seriously, don't try this at home, kids. Anyway, that brings us to the end of our wonderful discussion. Thank you so much for joining us, Bob Dylan, Sigmund Freud. You're both amazing at what you do. Keep it up. Actually, Freud, you'd better get back in that urn, and I think the people at the crematorium are missing you. Thank you for you guys for tuning in. As always, I can't do this without your support. Hit that like button, subscribe, drop a comment below. Thanks a million. Until next time.